Hello again. Thank you very much for joining me here on Movie Ninja. And today is a little bit of something that I haven't done in a while, and that is like a kind of like a watch list as far as recommendations go. Just day-to-day responsibilities, I will not be able to make the individual videos for a majority of the films that I would like to recommend to you all. So I decided to make one big sort of like watch list. Now that being said, I have broken this down into 3. Today I'm only going to be covering 10. The following video probably will be coming out like this weekend, and next week, before October finishes, you will have the last video. So this one is going to have 10 entries on it. Films that I recommend that you watch if you have not watched them yet. They will make for good viewing experiences. At least I think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't be recommending them. And the final video will have 11, because, 10, 11, 31. So to cover the possibility of 31 films for you to watch, at least before the month is finished. And we're still in a good... It's the 13th. We're still in a good position to where if you have fallen behind, if this is important to you, it's like for like film nerds, like it is. It's something that we enjoy. That you can still watch at least a decent amount of horror films. So now these are not in any particular order. However, I would say the top 3 do have special significance. And this is a blend of older, like classic, newer stuff, a little bit of campy and a little bit serious as well. So I think it would also give you all an idea of, for this genre, the genre of horror, which I'm not an expert on, nor something that I typically consume, but over the years you just kind of cultivate, a large filmography of like films that you have watched, and you would like, to bring to the attention of others, so hopefully they can enjoy them as well. And I'm going to get started. Okay, so for this first 10 list, I have to resist saying top 10 because it's just a habit whenever you hear listicles. The internet has done this to us. Anyways, so number 10 is Pumpkinhead from 1988. For any of you who have not seen this film, it is about a man who, unfortunately, he loses his son in what is best described as a vehicular manslaughter, like accident. And unfortunately, he loses his little boy. And obviously, this would be devastating for anyone. So he takes the normal route, of grief and loss, and he makes an unholy pact with a witch to summon a demon to wreak bloody revenge on those that he considers responsible for his son's death. Once again, as you do. So, Pumpkinhead 1988. It was one of these films that I was warned, if I watch it, even though I wanted to watch it because it was a big kid film to see, and I was warned it will give you nightmares, and maybe it was just the age that I was at, but I should have listened to that warning. Maybe I should have a little bit more time to be a big kid, and then maybe it wouldn't have hit me as heavy as it did, but still, it is a standout, and I recommend it. Okay, at number 9, Beyond the Black Rainbow. Beyond the Black Rainbow is a mix of a psychological thriller and a Europop music video in the best possible way that the director Panos Cosmatos could give to viewers. The overall idea is that a Dr. Arborius, and I believe it was the 60s or 70s, he set up this kind of holistic communal environment, with lots and lots of acid. And he and his followers did copious amounts of drugs in an attempt to broaden their minds and broaden the horizons of the human mind. And the idea of the consequences of that, of what is possible if the human mind expands to horizons that it probably wasn't meant to do. So it is very cerebral, surreal. It is very interesting. So I highly recommend Beyond the Black Rainbow 2010. Now, the next one that I put up here, it's a little bit like you can place it anywhere in your viewing schedule. I would say that, like, if you've watched a few heavy films, a few like really serious, really violent, like horror flicks, this next one, is just something that, okay, kind of a palate cleanser maybe, but it is Van Helsing from 2004. Van Helsing, 2004. It tried too hard, in my opinion. It tried too hard to be cool. We have Hugh Jackman, we have Kate Beckinsale, and they have to team up to stop a confusing but diabolical plan from Count Dracula. And you can't take, like, when you try that hard, you can't take it seriously. But the film has its redeeming qualities. It has Hugh Jackman as the titular Van Helsing. Famous all throughout Europe for monster hunting, and he has to team up with Kate Beckinsale from Underworld fame, as well as many other films. But he teams up with a Romani princess who also comes from a long line of monster hunters, and they have to team up to stop Dracula and his very confusing plan. So it also suffers from overcrowding. They try to fit in as many Universal classic monsters into the same film. Doesn't really work, but it gets a lot of points for style. It gets a lot of points for just like original creature designs. I like a lot of what they did with the monsters. And so it's, once again, it tried a little bit like too hard. It's a little overstuffed, overcrowded, but it's still entertaining. I mean, it's to date, at least I can't think of anyone's off the top of my head. A buddy of mine who's really into like steampunk, maybe he could. But to the best of my knowledge, this is really the only steampunk monster slayer like flick, made within recent memory, because like that it stands out to me. So it gets a lot of points like for style, and it's goofy in a number of ways, but that makes it fun. So, all right, Van Helsing 2004. Number 7, recent actually, but a very good first effort. The Vast of Night from 2019. The Vast of Night is about a small town that one night they experience a number of just strange, bizarre happenings. And when two local kids, to start to do some sleuth work as far as like trying to figure out exactly like what might be happening, what happens is that they get more than they bargained for. They are told a number of testimonials, a few from over the radio and one from a woman in town who is considered more or less an eccentric that no one really pays attention to. And, trying to discern fantasy from reality, trying to understand what if there are other beings in the universe that have unlimited potential for controlling us. It's a very tense, very atmospheric, very, very interesting sort of like hark back to the kind of like the story that would make War of the Worlds very interesting for that time and that setting. It was a first effort by a young director. I'm not sure if he has any projects in the works or he has done anything like since, but The Vast of Night, very, being, you can being it's his first film, not a whole lot of press, not a whole lot of pomp and circumstance like with that, but I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. So, now we get to Night of the Demon. This is a film that focuses on an American psychologist, and he is, along from being a career psychologist, he also, just for kicks and giggles, he decides to debunk supernatural myths as well as like occultist groups. And wouldn't you know it, there happens to be one in the United Kingdom that has caught his attention, and he has just gone in after them as hard as he possibly can. He's calling them all frauds, especially their leader, calling them all frauds and hucksters and scammers, and he's just out to prove them wrong. Well, you know, the cult leader meets with him on his lecture tour, and he says, you need to stop. I'm asking you nicely. Please stop. But I'm only asking once. And Night of the Demon is this wonderful blend of hypothetical and practical. It is a film that at once like has these characters that really don't want to believe in what goes bump in the night, because that provides a security and a groundedness in the real world. That's understandable, completely understandable. And you know, I certainly don't want to come off as this anyone approaching anti-science or anything like that. However, you know, when going after a cult leader in some ways is probably going to have some consequences. So, Night of the Demon, 1957, not to be confused for Curse of the Demon, the American horrible, messy re-edit that has built-in continuity errors, as well as the removal of several key scenes that allow you to understand the characters a bit better. So that's the American edit. Curse of the Demon is the American edit. No go. Don't bother. Don't waste your time with that. Night of the Demon, 1957. Now, this next one, Kuroneko from 1968. Kuroneko is a film set in Japan during, I believe it's the Warring States era. And what happens is this mother and her daughter-in-law are brutally attacked, assaulted, and murdered by just a random roaming group of samurai. Unfortunately, because of the manner in which they died, also because their corpses came into contact with black cats. Hold on, before anyone asks any questions, just accept that, mythology from different cultures can be a little bit brilliant. I'm not going to doctor it. I'm not going to try to make it sort of like watered down and sort of like say there's some things that other cultures believe in is less believable than what we believe in. I'm not going to do that. I was for a split second, but then I said, no, don't you dare. Especially because I have put in years of my life just studying mythologies from other cultures, and it's vibrant and it's beautiful. But I digress. Anyways, gonna get off my soapbox here, and because of the state of their corpses, they come back as undead creatures that have the capability of casting illusion, but and a number of other powers, and they use these abilities as a means of getting revenge on all samurai, on all those who have wronged them. It's a very beautifully stylized tale of revenge. I highly recommend it. Kuroneko, 1968. Okay. Number 4. David Cronenberg's The Fly. Now, this is a remake from, I believe, a 1950s film starring Vincent Price. David Cronenberg, and he has dabbled in other genres, but he was primarily known in his early and mid-career as a horror film director, and one of the one of the major proponents of body horror. His practical effects usually focus on how the human body can be twisted, or how it can decay, and how it can change and metamorphosize in just really horrible ways. And The Fly, which comes from a scientist attempting an experiment with teleportation, accidentally splicing his DNA with a housefly. Well, I mean, that doesn't sound so big. Like, flies aren't that scary. Can't be that big of a deal. Watch the movie. What happens is we get to watch this man, Brundle. I forget his first name, but we watch the transformation of Brundlefly, and it's gory, ghastly, rough, disgusting, and I love it. It is, in my opinion, it's his magnum opus for body horror. He had done a few horror films that focus on body horror, like previous to The Fly, but to me, it's his standout. It's his magnum opus. So, if you haven't seen it, it's like, it's from the 80s. It's probably like those effects. I mean, they probably don't age well. Trust me, they hold up. So, but get ready if you see it. So, top 3 can go in a number of like different orders, but so the top 3 of this list is John Carpenter's The Thing. I just finished talking about another remake, but this is a remake of a 1950s kind of Cold War era sci-fi film. But John Carpenter's The Thing is a masterwork of suspense, claustrophobia, tension, paranoia. And all of this, very similar to the last one that I just mentioned, all of this is tethered to magnificent practical effects. Unfortunately, the film didn't receive the applause that it really deserved when it first premiered, because people were so horrified of the special effects. It was so good it came all the way around, and then it, in the minds of people in the 1980s, oh no, this is bad. Oh my goodness, no one should ever see this. It's horrible. But it's wonderful. The script is great. The characters are great. The practical effects are once in a career, and it deserves as much accolades as it has received, and more. It's not my favorite film from John Carpenter, but it is, in my opinion, it is his best film. I say that in my opinion, like a semi-pretentious way. Like, a lot of people hail this as his best work. Okay, The Thing, 1982. And in number 2, The Witch. The Witch is austere, bare bones thriller with a bit of the supernatural. So it's about this family of Puritans that, they have been recently ostracized from their, larger Puritan community, and unfortunately out on their own in the, in the wilderness. Just a number of tragedies happen to them in quick succession, and the parents of the family decide to put a lot of the blame on the eldest daughter. And the film's emotional content and emotional themes are excruciating. And I can't say too much more than that. I can give it the praise that I've just given it. Can't say too much, because otherwise it will it will simply it might ruin everything. But it is one of the best horror films I've seen, like in the per the 2010s, and I really think it highlights a turning point in American horror as well. So, The Witch, 2015. 2014, along with The Witch, I believe cemented a new era in horror, and that is The Babadook, 2014, an Australian production, and it's about a single mother who is desperately trying to do her best to raise her son, who may or may not have a personality disorder, but she's in denial of this because she's trying to put up a facade of, I am a good mother, I am trying my best on my own. We see the truth in her private life, and even though one could make the argument she is making an honest attempt, it's really hard to... It is very, very hard to look away from just perhaps unintentional abuse, but still abuse nonetheless. And abuse, for anyone sort of like thinking like, well, she doesn't ever kind of sort of like hit the kid. Abuse can take many forms. They're all cruel and ugly. And the Babadook, the story, the narrative, focuses on her torn emotions because as a single parent, she suffers in her own way, yes, but unfortunately she has also passed on that suffering to her son. And the Babadook as a malevolent entity that really defies description, actually, really preys upon her innermost, worst emotions and thoughts and pushes her to the brink of destruction. And that is the most that I can say about that film with regards to trying to keep things, spoiler free. So, The Babadook, The Witch, these two films, and The Babadook came out in 2014. A year later, The Witch came out, and I believe these were the two films that really set the newer standard. They're very avant-garde horror. Sort of like a newer age leading into where we are now, 2020, post, and 2021, with a lot of films that have tried to copy their aesthetics and their themes and their writing. But, hey, it's a form of flattery, but you can't always copy the greats. So, but anyways, so this is part one. This is part one of my 3-part series. It's a little bit longer, I admit. I like to talk. So at least I like to talk about movies, at least. So this took a little bit longer. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you very much. You're a champ. So my question to you all is, have you seen any of these movies? If you do, what are your thoughts on them? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you again. If you have not seen, all of these are recommendations. I've seen all of these. I have very little other than good to say about them. So I do highly recommend them. Thank you, as always, for joining me here on Movie Ninja, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.